What's up everybody, and welcome to another video. In today's video we are checking out a interesting topic that I wanted to talk about, and that would be Balisong lubes. Now, I think lube on a Balisong is a concept that is very important. Like, I think basically any Balisong should be something that you lubricate. You know, like, I think that it is important kind of general knowledge as to how to lubricate a Balisong and like what to actually do with that. So lubricating a Balisong is extremely important, and we'll get into why in just a moment. But for now, I wanted to talk about types of lubricant and what makes a good lube versus what makes a bad lube and all of that jazz. So I have a couple types of lube with me today in my Hirsch Pelican case. Not sponsored by myself. No, this is sponsored by myself. I'm always sponsoring myself. What am I talking about? I have a couple lubes here. I have Super Lube, which is my personal favorite lube, and then I have Carbon Honey Thick, which is a lube that I actually recently got and I am really, really impressed with. But here's the thing, I don't think that there's a huge reason to go with one lube over another. And that's what I wanted to talk about in this video, right? The thing with lubes, and the reason that I think that they are both incredibly important and not very important at all, is, well, any lube is better than no lube. So if you have literally nothing in your Balisong, you're going to have a bad time. You should lubricate your Balisong. Everybody should lubricate their Balisong. It's a very important and basic step in, you know, taking care of your knife. But just because it is an important step doesn't mean that the lube actually makes that much of a difference from lube to lube. And this is the thing that I've heard discussed a lot, which is, oh, this lube is better than this lube, or oh, this lube is better than this lube. Here's the thing, right? When you have a lube on your Balisong, there are so many other factors that will affect whether or not your Balisong has good swing and good tolerances that are so much more important than the lube itself. Let's look at this for just a second, right? With a Balisong like this, you have the tightness of the screws themselves, right? So that's already one factor. Then you have the washer thickness. Then you have the thickness of the bushing and how that was all set up and how tightly everything is screwed together, and just every last piece of information related to all of those little parts that matter so much. One way I like to put it is, if I was to make a lube review video, right? A video where I was reviewing different lubes versus one another, the actual setup that would be required to scientifically test all the lubes versus one another would be insanely complicated, because I would be trying to eliminate as many variables as possible from the Balisong so that I can address the swing and the difference in swing being specifically to only the lube. So what I would have to do is I would have to have the Balisong set up on some kind of workbench, right? So I'd have to have something that holds the Balisong without any human interaction consistently in the same exact spot and drops the handle in the same exact way so that it can do like a swing test, right? So we're just like testing to see how long the knife swings for. And then we'd clean it up and apply a different lube and then do it again. But here's the thing, right? I can't just clean it up and apply a different lube, because the washers affect the tune, which means that I would have to make sure that I have replacement washers so that I could use brand new washers every single time in the Balisong. So I would have to have a bunch of brand new washers. I would also have to measure all of those washers to make sure that they are the exact same thickness and the exact same finish. They can't have any extra burrs or roughness or anything like that compared to one another. They all have to be exactly the same. And then on top of that, I have to make sure that every single part of the Balisong is cleaned. I need to make sure that the bushing is completely cleaned out. I need to make sure that both of the washers are completely cleaned out. And then finally, when reassembling the Balisong, I would have to make sure that I am actually using a screwdriver that has a force gauge on it that can tell me exactly how tight I am tightening this Balisong with this lubricant, because that also affects the swing of the Balisong and how well it performs. And so you can see pretty quickly that this becomes a massive issue to contend with. what you end up having is a problem that has so many variables that actually affect the outcome that the lube itself really is the smallest portion of that problem, right? So this is all to say that using any lube is absolutely better than using no lube. But in my opinion, almost every lube is pretty much interchangeable with one another, and that's why Super Lube is my favorite lube. Is it my favorite lube because it's the best lube? No. It's my favorite lube because it just so happens to be cheap and accessible. You can buy it in bulk very easily. It is very cheap, and you can buy it almost anywhere in the world because Super Lube is a massive industrial worldwide company. So yeah, Super Lube is my favorite lube, not because it is the best lube, but because it is a good lube that is super cheap and super accessible. However, Carbon Honey is different in an interesting way, and it is one of the first lubricants that I've seen that was made for Balisongs that actually seems genuinely different in some interesting ways. I think that the problem with a lot of other Balisong lubes is that really it's just like, yeah, this is a lube, and it's just like every other lube, but now it's got like a scent in it, you know, and it smells like something, which is cool, and if you like that, that's great. You know, literally whatever lube you end up getting and liking the best, that is the best lube for you, and there is no in-between with that, right? There is no like, oh, this lube is better than this lube, because really, no lube is better than any lube. Like, they are almost all completely identical to some degree. Some of them last longer than others, but really at the end of the day, there's not too much of a difference between any two lubes in terms of its actual effect on flipping performance. But Carbon Honey Thick is a very interesting lube to me for a couple specific reasons. First of all, it was actually formulated by oil engineers. Second of all, it was made with graphene as one of the additive ingredients. And graphene is very interesting because graphite and graphene are used as a dry lubricant all the time for stuff like bearings, right? And so this is where we start to get into some interesting ideas. Bearing Balisongs, usually you don't want to lubricate them with anything except very thin oils or graphite. This has graphene built into the lubricant, which should potentially, over time, even as the oil itself sort of wears out, you will actually have a effect of lubrication simply from the leftover graphene that is inside of your pivots. That also means that in general you should have to use less of this lubricant than you would other lubricants because it will last longer due to the additive ingredients. So I think that graphene is a fantastic thing to add to a Balisong pivot system. However, I will say I'm doing research on this thing. I have only had Carbon Honey for a little bit. I've applied it to a number of my knives and I have enjoyed the results. However, I don't know if what I'm experiencing from the graphene is because the graphene itself is acting as a lubricant, or if it is the graphene itself acting as a microscopic abrasive, because this is also a potential problem. If graphene is acting as a abrasive on the Balisong at a microscopic level, it could be polishing the various parts of the Balisong, be it the blade and the pivots and the washers. It could be polishing them on a microscopic scale, which is happening anyways in almost any circumstance when two surfaces rub together, but the graphene could potentially accelerate that. And I don't know if it is which. Like, I need to do more research as to how graphene works on a microscopic scale as a lubricant. I need to do more research with my own Balisongs, just testing and flipping them a bunch and seeing if I notice a difference. I'm hopeful that it is not necessarily polishing the insides of my Balisong parts and instead is actually providing external lubrication outside of just the oil itself. But I genuinely don't know, and it's genuinely very hard to tell in these kinds of circumstances. So yeah, that's a little bit of a rant about lube. I really have enjoyed Carbon Honey. If you haven't tried it, do check it out. It's very cool. The other thing that I really like about it is that it is extremely thick, like the thick version. It just has a ability to stay exactly where you put it, which means that when you drop your Balisong on sand, like I did earlier with my Alien, I actually didn't get a lot of that sand sticking inside of the pivots. And it's because I only put a very small amount of Carbon Honey on this thing. So it doesn't have a lot of extraneous oil that easily sucks in things like sand and other organic compounds. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. I think it's a good lubricant, but at the end of the day, the best lubricant is the lubricant you have and the lubricant you enjoy. So don't go chasing the rabbit's tail. You don't need to try every single lubricant. Whatever lubricant you happen to enjoy, I guarantee will be the best for you. There is no best lubricant. That is simply not a thing that exists. As I said, I like Super Lube simply for its convenience and price, and not because it is genuinely the best lubricant, because I don't believe that that exists, especially when you're talking about a system as complicated as a Balisong. So yeah, that's my whole rant about lube. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. There appears to be some yelling people coming out of the tunnel behind me. Very exciting. I hope they're having a good day with their yelling. I would also like to yell. So yeah, I appreciate these yelling people, and I hope that one day I will also get to yell. I've yet to have that happen. You know, I've been loud, but I wouldn't say I've yelled yet, and I think that would be very cool to experience as a human being. You know, I think there's a lot of cool stuff that people get to experience in their lives, like breathing and like tasting food. Those are also two that I haven't necessarily tried. I've done breathing before, but I wasn't too wowed by it. The food thing sounds awesome, so one day we'll figure that out. But yelling, honestly, that's one of the things that's like at the top of my list when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, you know, wish me luck. Maybe one day I'll get to yell. But until that point, I'll just keep flipping, because that's just what I've been programmed to do. That's just how I go. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. This has been a rant about lube, and yeah, I'll see you later. Peace.